Hello.
Hello.
How are you? Don't do it. No. That's not good. This is wrong. No. No. No, don't do it. Don't do it. I'm a virgin. No.
Hey everyone, welcome to my manga review for We Never Learn. This is a romantic comedy series that was brought to us by Taishi Suits, and it was serialized in Weekly Shonen Jump between 2017 and 2020. I've been keeping up with this one for a while, as you know, so let's begin. We Never Learn follows Naruyuki Yuiga, a very gifted third-year high school student who is aiming for a scholarship. His school gives out a VIP recommendation. I just realized my water was still in the shot. You see, Naruyuki comes from a pretty poor family. His dad died a few years ago, so it's just his mom taking care of him and several of his siblings, which makes their home life a bit hectic. They're all struggling to get by, so he's hoping that with his excellent grades, he can get this scholarship, go into a great school, get a good job, and then provide for his family. And the school, being very impressed with his work ethic, has decided to give it to him. Under one condition. The principal introduces him to two girls, Fumino Furuhashi and Rizu Ogata. Furuhashi is one of the best English students in the school.
And every time I see your face.
And Ogata is a mathematical genius. The problem, though, is that they're pretty god-awful at the opposite subject, which wouldn't be too much of a problem except Furuhashi wants to become an astronomer, and Ogata wants to become a psychologist. Now, the two of them are best friends. They've known each other for years, and they've tried to help teach each other on the subjects that they're terrible at, but it can't be done. They're a complete lost cause. They've gone through several tutors before in the past, and they have not been able to teach them at all. No matter how good they are in the one subject, in the one that they suck at, they just can't figure it out. So the principal gives Naruyuki a challenge. Teach these girls to be good in the subjects that they suck at, and if you can do that, then we'll give you the recommendation. We're not done yet, though, because we also have another girl, Uruka Takemoto. Now, she is an athletic prodigy. She's in the swim team, and she's one of the best athletes the school has ever had. And she has plans of, going to study abroad to join some fancy American swim team or whatever. But she can't do that because she's also shit at school. But we're not quite done yet. We also have Mifuyu Kurisu, who is a teacher at this high school. She was Furuhashi and Ogata's previous tutor, and she's very upset that these girls are choosing to pursue other career paths that don't match up with their skills, and she's going to let them know that. She's going to let Naruyuki know that. She's going to be all up in their business all the time. And our last girl is Asumi Komiyami, who is an alumni of this high school, who wants to get into medical school, so she's going to study for that. You're asking what she has to do with all these girls? Nothing. She's just there, and then they all fall in love with each other. That's We Never Learn. So this is a pretty standard romantic comedy manga. You have mostly episodic chapters, which usually just deal with Naruyuki and a combination of any of these girls getting up to, some silly fun times. He'll be tutoring them, or he'll run into them in the town at some point. He'll see one of their panties, they'll get embarrassed. That's pretty much the tier that this series is at. But it's not to say there's no overarching story. I mean, of course, as the series goes on, the school year continues, the girls will have to write tests, Naruyuki's skills as a teacher are really tested, and of course, romantic plots. I don't really want to talk too much about them to avoid spoilers, but the main one that's, really drilled into your brain from the start is with Takemoto, who is one of Naruyuki's childhood friends, and she's had a crush on him forever. That's really the main one they focus on, and it's basically just her, simping for him all the time, and him being like a complete brain-dead idiot. Because as smart as he is, man, he can't take a fucking hint to save his life. So most of the chapters in this series are comedic. This is a very lighthearted manga that doesn't take itself very seriously. And at its best, I think it is a decently funny manga. It does rely heavily on romantic comedy manga tropes, and your mileage will vary on, how annoying you find those. Personally, I don't really mind these tropes to an extent if they're done in a creative way, and sometimes they are. But there are other times where this series feels very forced and very tired. A lot of tropes that are repurposed just feel like they're there for the sake of being there. And I think a lot of the scenarios that they set up feel very, very convenient. I know this isn't a very serious series, but some of these just feel like way too coincidental. Like when you set up a scenario in their school and they're all together, it all makes sense. But when Naruyuki's going around town in Tokyo, well, like one of the biggest cities in the world, and he just happens to run into all 5 of these girls in a row. That happens a lot throughout the series, and it is very weird, and it honestly just comes across as a bit lazy. Like they couldn't think of another more creative way to get all these people together. It just has to be all coincidence and random chance. But yeah, like I said, when it works, it's not too bad. And I think there is a lot of, decent enjoyment to be had with We Never Learn. However, there's another side to the series. Of course, you have the drama elements. All of these girls come with their baggage. They aren't all perfect, and as Naruyuki grows closer to them, learns more about them, he realizes, hey, these girls got some problems, not completely related to school. Maybe we should take a look at those too. So we are presented with, several subplots involving these girls and their lives, some of the problems they have, and how Naruyuki might be able to help them fix it. And I think this element of the series is actually pretty decent. A lot of the more emotional parts of the series I thought worked decently well. A lot of the stories were pretty engaging. And most of these plots span the whole series, so you're always going to be wanting to know what happens next. It really is nothing amazing, but for a series as dumb as this, I was sometimes impressed with the emotional storytelling. Now, I usually end the story section by talking about the ending briefly, whether I liked it or not, but we're gonna need to actually give the ending its own segment here, so we're gonna put a pin in it. I'll move on to the characters and then we'll come back. So Naruyuki is not a great character. He is a very, very bland protagonist. He's nice, he cares about these girls, he wants to see them succeed, he cares about his family. He blushes every time he sees cleavage. Just very honestly bare bones, and there's not much to him. He's probably the weakest aspect of this series, which is pretty unfortunate. However, it's not a complete lost cause, because I think all 5 of our main girls are pretty good. They all have very distinct personalities and are quite memorable. While the main focus is these girls' relationship with Naruyuki, it's also really interesting to see their relationships with each other grow. And a lot of the comedy does come from all of these characters playing off of each other, and their, romantic rivalries clashing all the time. Furuhashi and Ogata were already best friends at the start of the series, so that whole thing's already done. But seeing the two of them become close friends with Takimoto and Komiyami, really, really cool. And also the character dynamic with Kurisu sensei, because like I alluded to, she doesn't really respect these girls at all, but as the series goes on, they do get to understand each other a bit more, and we learn a lot more about Kurisu, which fleshes her out a good bit. Although, the thing with Kurisu, and you might have already thought this, you're telling me one of these girls that, is part of all the romantic hijinks is his teacher? Yes. Kurisu, I don't think we know her exact age, but she's at least 5 years his senior, so it is quite odd seeing some of these scenarios play out. Because, it would generally be considered,
Hey, Jared.
Hey, guys. At Subway, you can choose from 7 sandwiches.
not that Kurisu is actually thirsting for Naruyuki's penis. It's just these very awkward scenarios that if I were a teacher and I was with a student, ages ago I would have been alright, pump the brakes. This ain't it. So I really feel Kurisu belongs on the list. We gotta keep an eye on her. I mean, I think she's a decent character, but man, I haven't mentioned which of the 5 main girls is my favorite, because none of them are. Sekijo is my favorite. She is someone who becomes very close to Ogata. They don't straight up say it, but I do think it's pretty clear that she has a crush on her. And I think that all of the chapters with her are the best ones in the series. And she's not in it much, because she's not one of the main girls, but she's very funny. Whenever she was in a plot line, I was very happy. And we even learn a bit more about her at some points. And I think it led to some of the more interesting stuff in the series. So yeah, but aside from the main character, which is admittedly a pretty big flaw, all of the characters are pretty great here, and I don't think I will be forgetting them anytime soon. But here's the thing, this series has an ending, and the ending, honestly, I hate it with every fiber of my being. So we're going to need to discuss it a bit more in depth. So here's a time you can skip to if you don't want to be spoiled. But I will say, I have a feeling that once you know how this series ends, you are not going to give a shit if I spoil it or not. So the big question throughout the series, most romantic comedy harem series, is who is the main character going to end up with? if anyone. Now, me, I was personally rooting for Sekijo. I know it didn't really make sense because, you know, it's always these main 5 girls. But, you know, I thought it would just be really cool to you know, throw a twist our way. And I feel like those two actually did have a bit of chemistry together. But whatever, it doesn't fucking matter. Because what they decide to do is the most pussy, coward, bitch move I've ever seen. Instead of committing, instead of pulling a Chad Negi Haraba, we are going to do a virtual novel ending. Where after the series ends, and it was a nice ending, I was like, alright, this makes perfect sense. You know, it was very predictable, very safe, but I was happy with it. They decide to give us 4 more alternate universe endings, which involve completely rewriting the canon of the main series so that Naruyuki ends up with each girl in a separate timeline. This does not work on any level for me at all. There are so many things wrong with it. It might not seem so bad. Like, hey, he just wants to give people, you know, whatever they want. No one will be disappointed. That's some pussy shit, okay? Aside from the first one, none of these final arcs really make sense in the context of the story. When I said they rewrite the canon, I really mean it, as in order for a lot of these arcs to work, they have to set things up which involve showing flashbacks of earlier events that now happened differently. It's like a whole what-if scenario. But that doesn't really work for me, because again, it's a problem I had with some of the earlier comedic stuff. It just feels so lazy, like such a cop-out way to have things end this way. Like at one point midway through the series, Komiyami kisses Naruyuki on the cheek. Okay. But then in her ending, it's like, oh, that's not what happened. She actually kissed him on the lips the whole time. It's just dumb things like that that just make it seem so lazy, so forced. Like, they couldn't think of anything more creative to do to get these characters together. The thing with him ending up with each of these girls is that you never really see what happens to the other girls. At least not in great detail. It's like, hold on, all of these girls were thirsting after you. You end up with one of them, and they're just all okay. Like, there's no conflict at all. Everything is just peachy keen, go, yes, slay queen. It felt very odd and very out of character for some of these girls. The weirdest thing for me about these final ending arcs is that they aren't just, you know, Naruyuki ends up with one of them. Like, they are actual story arcs that conclude long-running plot points, which is so weird to me, because that implies that on the other timelines, these plot points are never resolved, which is honestly kind of fucked up. But then there are also plot points that they just introduced to be wrapped up in the final arc, and it feels super rushed and forced. Like, this whole ending just is so odd to me. I see what he was going for. He wanted to make everyone happy, but sometimes that's really not the way to go, and it just ended up being a really confusing mess, and I ended the series honestly feeling like I wasted my time. Anyway, the art is pretty good. You know, there's romantic comedy. Obviously, with these series, you're not really going to be expecting any like crazy action set pieces, super detailed art. It has a very, you know, cartoony anime style, and it's just really solid. That's all I can really say about it. The character designs are super memorable, except for Naruyuki's, much like his character. Although it is kind of weird to see how much his design changed from the start to the finish. It's like, I don't know what this was about, but I like his ladder design better anyway. And yeah, it's just super consistently good throughout. So not much to say here, but nothing bad to say either. Those are my thoughts on We Never Learn. It's a weird one. It's hard for me to even say how I feel about it, because there are parts where I do genuinely think it's a great fun series, and a lot of parts that are super frustrating, especially the ending. So I'm just going to settle with a 5 out of 10. I think if you are a big fan of this genre, it's definitely worth checking out. But if you're only a mild fan, you dabble in them here or there, there's far better ones you could be reading. Still, this one isn't, you know, as bad as it could have been. And if you are interested in checking it out, this series has been licensed by Viz, and they have been releasing the English volumes slowly, and I don't think it'll be too long before they're all out. And you can also read the entire series from start to finish on the Shonen Jump web and mobile app. There was also an anime series, which got 2 seasons, and it's a bit weird, because throughout its run, it was faithfully adapting the manga, but then at the very end, they slapped together this super rushed and forced anime original ending. Ironically, I think it's better than the ending of the manga, but it is a bit unfortunate that, half of this series is never going to be animated. For better or worse, I still think there was a lot of cool things that anime-only fans are going to miss out on. And yeah, there we go. We Never Learn, everyone. For alternate recommendations, obviously, the quintessential quintuplets. This is another romantic comedy harem involving, tutoring, and it is significantly better in every way. I'm actually kind of upset at myself because, before I had read quintuplets and only read We Never Learn, I would have been like, man, nah, no way this is better than We Never Learn. This is the good shit right here. That's like, that was... Not proud of that. And also, hey, my favorite manga of all time, Kaguya-sama Love is War, is also a romantic comedy, and it's absolutely fantastic. These are two series you should really be reading instead of this. Like, only read this one if you want some, fun distraction, but come on. Blech. So there we go. Thank you all so much for watching. You can leave your thoughts on We Never Learn and this review in the comments down below. My next series review will be for Ping Pong, so you can look forward to that, and I will see you guys then.
It's only right to think about the girl you love and hold her tight, so happy together. If I should call you up, invest a dime, and you say you belong to me, and ease my mind.